Welcome to African Folktales by Big Mark, where timeless stories come to life. Each tale is more than just a story, it's an experience. So sit back, relax, and let the magic unfold. The sacred flame had died. Not flickered. Not dimmed. It had extinguished itself completely, something that hadn't happened in over 3 generations. Inside the temple, the priestesses wept in silence. Some fell to their knees, others scattered to their quarters, terrified. But the high priestess stood motionless, her fingers clutched tight over the broken mirror, her eyes fixed on Nyara. "You have done what even death fears," she whispered. "You have broken the bond." Nyara didn't flinch. The silence between them was louder than any thunderclap. The cracked mirror before her reflected not just her face, but the fracture between her destiny and her desire. She had chosen love, and in doing so, she had declared war on tradition. News spread quickly through Sunvale. The girl of spirit frame had violated her sacred vow. Some whispered she was possessed. Others said the spirits had abandoned her. Children were told not to speak her name. Traders crossed themselves when passing the temple. Her father, Baba Adewunmi, arrived at the gates, begging to see her. He was turned away. "We must protect the village from her," the high priestess declared. Spirit frame cannot reside in a vessel that has allowed mortal hands to touch the divine. Punishment was swift. Nyara was stripped of her ceremonial robes. Her staff was burned in the courtyard. And on the night of the new moon, she was taken to the forest edge and tied beneath the spirit frame tree, a gnarled, ancient thing where fallen priestesses were buried and forgotten. But Nyara did not cry. She stared into the trees, waiting for Tariq, for death, for the gods themselves. Far away, Tariq stood at the mouth of the oracle's grove. No man entered this place without losing something: sanity, memory, or soul. But he had nothing left to lose. "If she is to be hallowed," he said to the wind, "then I will be the vessel." He stepped forward, each step a vow. His love had awakened something ancient. Now, he needed a weapon that could challenge the gods. The oracle was not a woman, nor a man. It was a voice. Everywhere and nowhere. It echoed through trees, through bone, through blood. "You seek to save the cursed," it said. "I seek to honor the truth," Tariq replied. "You would give your life for hers." "My soul, if it must be so." A wind tore through the grove, lifting his feet from the ground. He saw visions. Nyara bound, her tears falling into soil that grew nothing. He saw the veil, floating through fire. He saw a child, eyes wide and strange, calling out to no one. "Then you must carry her sin," the oracle said. "I already do. You must die before she lives." Tariq closed his eyes. "So be it." And the forest swallowed him whole. Back in Sunvale, the priestesses gathered around the spirit frame tree. The ritual of severance had begun. They chanted the old words, their hands raised high. The earth around Nyara trembled. The air grew thick, heavy with judgment. A white mist rose from the base of the tree, wrapping around her like a serpent. Nyara gasped, feeling something inside her pull, like threads unraveling from her chest. She screamed, once. And then, silence. The mist dissipated. The priestesses lowered their hands. The veil, once bound to her soul, fell gently to the ground. "She is empty," the high priestess declared. They untied her, carried her back into the village. But Nyara did not weep. Did not collapse. She walked on her own, head high, eyes hollow, but not defeated. The temple rejoiced. The balance was restored. Or so they believed. That night, in the deepest corner of the oracle's grove, a tremor ran through the earth. Tariq rose from the roots of the world. He was no longer entirely himself. His eyes glowed with starlight. His voice held echoes. His heartbeat pulsed with spirit frame, not as a gift, but as a curse willingly carried. The oracle had made him the new vessel. One that could never be tamed. And now, he would return. Not to save Nyara, but to remind the gods what love could destroy. Back in her quarters, Nyara sat alone. The walls were bare. The chants had stopped following her. Even the flame refused to burn in her presence. But inside her chest, something stirred. She no longer felt the spirit frame of the priestesses. She felt his. Somehow, impossibly, she was still connected. To Tariq, to the forest, to a love that refused to die even when severed by sacred blades. She touched her chest. Her heartbeat did not echo with emptiness. It echoed with his name. And somewhere in the hills, a star blinked red. Spirit frame was broken. And the gods had made a terrible mistake. Night blanketed Sunvale in a silence it had not known before. Not the peaceful hush of rest, but the tense, suffocating kind, like a village holding its breath. In the heart of the temple, the high priestess stirred uneasily. Dreams tormented her sleep. Visions of flames rising from the river, of trees weeping blood, of the sacred veil torn and floating over a battlefield of bones. She awoke drenched in sweat. She wasn't the only one. Throughout the village, animals cried without reason. The palm trees leaned away from the east winds. The spirit frame tree, once fed with ritual blood, had turned black overnight, its leaves shriveled and whispering secrets to the night. And still, no one dared speak his name. But in the forest, Tariq had risen. And he was no longer just a man. The hunter's footsteps no longer touched the earth. He moved like a shadow cast by fire, present, yet untouchable. His skin glowed faintly, etched with veins of molten light. In his eyes danced embers, and his voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of both promise and punishment. He had become Spirit Frame's reckoning. The oracle's warning echoed in his ears. You carry the balance. You carry the blade. But beware, the blade cuts both ways. He did not care. They had taken her. They had broken her. And now, they would answer for it. When he arrived at the edge of Sunvale, no guards saw him. He didn't walk through the gates. He passed through them. The wood blackened behind him. Torches dimmed. Dogs whimpered and fled. He was not there for war. He was there for truth. And for Nyara. She felt him before she saw him. Sitting alone in her barren chamber, she felt her heart leap, twist, then burn. The cold emptiness the priestesses had left in her, cracked. He was near. She rose slowly, trembling, as the wind outside shifted. And then he was standing before her. No doors opened. No footsteps warned her. He simply was. Her breath caught. He was more than a man now, yes. But she would have known him blindfolded, veiled, or dead. Tariq, she whispered. His voice was both gentle and thunderous. They hollowed you. She nodded. But you still carry me, he said. Even now. A single tear slipped down her cheek. I never stopped. They embraced. Finally. No veil. No vow. No gods to stand between them. But it was not joy that filled the room. It was urgency. They will come, she said. They will see you as a curse. I am not here to be seen, he replied. I am here to end this. Outside, the temple bells began to chime, wild and erratic. Someone had seen him. The high priestess stormed from her chambers, clutching a ceremonial dagger, flanked by 5 guards in bone-white robes. He's returned. A Benny shouted from the steps. The one who corrupted the veil. But even as she screamed, the sky above the temple cracked, lightening the spirit frame with no thunder. And the spirit frame tree, already dying, split down its trunk with a cry like a woman in labor. The village gathered in horror as the high priestess raised her arms. Seize them. Bind the boy. Strip the girl again. Spirit frame must be purified. But the guards froze. They could feel it too now, the presence. The wrongness of trying to contain something divine. Tariq stepped forward. His voice was calm. I don't seek blood. I seek balance. But the high priestess spat. You seek rebellion. No, he said, I seek justice. And love, stripped of truth, is not sacred. It is slavery. And then, it happened. The veil. The one Nyara once wore. It rose on its own, caught in a wind no one could feel. It danced above them all, glowing faintly, then turned dark, ink black, like a mourning cloth. It wrapped itself around the high priestess's face. She screamed. Not in pain, but in fear. Her voice was muffled, then choked, then gone. When the veil dropped, she lay still, eyes wide, lips parted. She had seen something, and it had undone her. The villagers watched in awe as the flame in the temple rekindled itself. But it was no longer white. It burned blue, the color of new truth, of rebirth, of promises rewritten. Tariq turned to Nyara. It is done. But she shook her head. No, she said. It's only beginning. The elders gathered at dawn. There were arguments, demands for exile, for cleansing, even for death. But then, a sound silenced them all. The spirit frame tree, dead and cracked, had begun to bloom. Bright blue flowers. Dozens of them. A sign, not of destruction, but of blessing. And so, for the first time in the history of Sunvale, the temple gates were opened. Not for war, but for change. Nyara and Tariq stood before the people. No longer a priestess and a hunter. But something new. Something forged in fire, tested by betrayal, and cleansed by truth. Together, they rewrote the sacred rites. Together, they declared, spirit frame is not to be feared. It is to be felt. And love is its truest form. But far beyond the village, in the caves where old gods sleep, an ancient eye flickered open. Change, it seems, has a price. And not all gods surrender easily. They awakened love. But now, something darker has awakened too. Every dawn carries a shadow. And some shadows are born from light. Sunvale was never the same after the night the veil turned black and bloomed anew. Some called it the night the gods wept. Others, the night the chains broke. But no one, not even the oldest among the elders, could deny what they saw. The spirit frame tree, long dead and hollowed, blooming again in defiance of everything sacred and feared. From that moment, Nyara and Tariq were no longer seen as desecrators. They were seen as something worse, and more dangerous. Symbols. Symbols of change. Symbols of what happens when love crosses the sacred. It began slowly. A woman, once barren for 9 years, touched the new blossoms of the spirit frame tree and conceived a child that same moon. A blind boy, taken to the river by his brother, claimed he saw a blue flame floating across the water, and wept with joy. People began coming to the temple gates not with sacrifices, but with questions. Can love be sacred? Can a vow be broken if it was made in fear? Is spirit frame only for the chosen, or for all? The old priestesses grew restless. The high council met in secret. Tradition, they realized, was crumbling. And crumbling tradition often calls on the only thing it understands, judgment. Tariq began to change. He no longer hunted. The forest did not fear him, nor feed him. Animals approached him without terror. Leaves never rustled in his wake. He was alive, but only barely. Something within him was dimming. The spirit frame he carried, the one given to him in the oracle's grove, was not a blessing meant to last. It was a burden, a temporary torch passed from one world to another. It burned within him day and night. And every time he touched Nyara, she felt it. The warmth, but also the slow fading. You're dying, she said one night. He didn't deny it. I wasn't meant to hold it forever, he told her. Spirit frame is too wild to be owned. Even by love. Then let me carry it, she pleaded. Let me share the weight. But Tariq smiled, tired and warm. You already do. Meanwhile, far from the village, in the cave of Omuti, the old gods stirred. The oracle's whisper had disturbed them. A mortal had taken on spirit frame. Another had broken its veil. And now, the world dared to bend the sacred to the will of human hearts. Such defiance could not be left unanswered. From the depths of that cave rose a figure. Not God. Not man. Something in between. Omuti, the forgotten guardian of divine law, once a protector, now a warden. He had slept for 300 years, his name erased from temple scrolls, his worship outlawed when the village embraced gentler deities. But now, the balance had shifted. And Omuti would bring it back. By force. The signs were subtle, at first. Children waking with deep scratches down their backs. Rain falling in reverse, rising from puddles into the clouds. Voices whispering from temple walls in the dead of night. The sacred has no equal. Nyara felt the tremble in the flame. Tariq felt it in his bones. Then came the dream. They shared it on the same night, though they slept in different rooms. A vision of the spirit frame tree, burning blue and gold, cracking again, only this time, it didn't bloom. It bled. And in its roots, something old and monstrous stirred, with a face carved from stone and teeth made of law. Omuti. The gods had sent their answer. At dawn, the villagers awoke to the temple's outer wall cracked clean down the center. The inner sanctum, where the sacred texts were kept, had been reduced to ash. But the most chilling part. The high priestess, once struck mute by the veil, now stood tall again. Her voice returned. But it wasn't her voice. It was his. Omuti had possessed her. Her eyes glowed pale white. Her skin had taken on a metallic sheen. She no longer walked. She glided. And her first decree rang like thunder through the square. The age of feeling is over. The gods demand obedience. The veil will be reforged. And love will kneel. Tariq knew his time was short. He had days left. Maybe less. Before the spirit frame within him consumed his mortal shell entirely. But he would not let Omuti take Nyara. Or the people. Or the truth they had bled to reveal. He met her by the river, the same bend where they had once stood as strangers. You'll have to leave, he told her. He's coming for you. You broke the veil. You gave it meaning again. And you gave it life, she said, eyes full of tears. They embraced, knowing it could be the last time. If I fall, he whispered, don't fight him. Unmake him. Not with fire, but with memory. She pulled away slowly, her fingers lingering on his chest. Then I'll remember every part of you. By nightfall, Omuti stood at the temple steps, the villagers gathered in silence. The veil had been reforged. This time, black as obsidian, its edges laced with teeth. It floated beside him like a specter. Bring me the girl, he boomed. But instead, Tariq stepped forward. And when he did, the blue flame erupted behind him, one final time. It danced in his eyes. It roared from his skin. The spirit frame was burning through him now. He raised his hand, and the sky split, not with rain, but with memory. Visions poured forth. Nyara as a child, veiled and alone. Her father weeping on the temple floor. Tariq at the river, holding her gaze with trembling hope. The bloom of the spirit frame tree. And then, silence. He fell to his knees. The fire dimmed. His chest stopped rising. And the last thing Nyara heard from him was a whisper carried on the wind. Now, it's yours. The veil shuddered. It unraveled. It screamed. And Omuti, he vanished into smoke. Not defeated by war, but by remembrance. By the truth that love had not defiled spirit frame, it had awakened it. They buried Tariq beneath the spirit frame tree. The petals rained blue for 7 days. Nyara never took another vow. She wore no veil. She became not a priestess, but a keeper of the new rites. The ones that taught that sacred does not mean silent. That obedience is not purity. That spirit frame is not a weapon, nor a curse. It is the soul made visible. And sometimes, it takes a broken heart to make the gods remember theirs. It had been 7 years since Tariq's body had turned to blue flame beneath the spirit frame tree. 7 seasons of bloom and loss. 7 cycles of rain falling like memory over Sunvale. The village no longer bowed to the old temple. The priestesses had disbanded. The sacred veil was never reforged. And Nyara, once a vessel, once a symbol, once a girl behind lace and law, had become something else entirely. A story keeper. A witness. The last voice of a forgotten truth. The children came to her now. Not in fear, but in curiosity. They'd sit in a wide half circle under the shadow of the spirit frame tree, its blossoms brighter than ever, shimmering with impossible colors. Tell us about the firewalker, they'd ask. Tell us how he made the veil scream. Tell us how love ended the god of judgment. And she would smile. Not sadly, but deeply. as though every word she spoke had been held in her chest like gold. And then, she would begin. He was just a hunter. With calloused hands and a heart too big for his chest. He did not seek the sacred. The sacred found him. And it asked him a question none of the gods could answer. What happens when love walks into the temple? But she never told them the whole story. Some things she kept for herself. Like the way his eyes looked in the moment before the fire took him. Tired, yes. But never afraid. Or the final time he whispered her name in the dark, like a prayer he didn't expect answered. Those were hers. Not for legend. For love. And then, one year, when the rains came early and the sky bloomed red at dawn, Nyara knew her time had come. She walked to the spirit frame tree alone, her steps slow, her spirit full. She did not bring a veil. She did not wear white. She wore the color of earth and sky, of fire and water. The colors he had worn. And she spoke aloud to the roots. I have carried your memory. I have kept it lit. But now, I must pass it on. And the spirit frame tree responded. Not in sound, but in scent, in light, in a single blossom falling gently into her hand. It shimmered blue. She pressed it to her lips. And when the wind took her, it did not howl. It sang. The villagers found the blossom days later, still warm, glowing faintly in the moonlight. They say it never wilted. They say her voice still lingers near the tree, humming the melody he once carved into a flute made of bone. They say if you stand beneath the spirit frame tree and close your eyes, you can still feel it, the fire, the vow, the veil, and most of all, the love that burned the sky. Now, across the lands beyond Sunvale, stories are told. Not of gods, or judgments, or temples made of stone. But of a hunter who carried fire. And a girl who wore a veil not out of shame, but of promise. And how together, they taught the world a new sacred truth. Spirit frame is not in obedience. Not in silence. Not in fear. Spirit frame is in the heart that dares to love, even when the gods say no. And that is the end of the story. Or perhaps, only the beginning. Because wherever love is forbidden, and truth must be whispered through veils, the memory of Tariq. This is the end of the story. Every story holds a seed of wisdom, and with each story, we grow a little deeper into the roots of our culture. If today's tale sparked a thought or touched your spirit, don't just keep it to yourself, share it. Let the story travel. Hit that subscribe button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and let me know which lesson stood out to you. I'm Big Mark, keeping the fire of storytelling burning bright. Until the next tale, stay wise, stay proud, and keep listening.